Hey, this is Greg, and today I want to talk to you about Disco. What is Disco? Well, Disco is a tool that we built, and it lets you host backend code, so Python, Rails, Node, PHP, that kind of stuff, and it lets you host that kind of code and run it on a server that you control. So if you know Heroku or Render or Railway or Fly, these are commercial platforms that offer that kind of service. But it can get pretty expensive if you have a lot of projects, if you have a lot of side projects. You typically pay per project when you use those platforms. And so Disco is an open source tool that lets you deploy your own projects using Git push. So it's very easy, but you can deploy to your own servers. So you just rent a server. You can rent like a $5 or $10 server, $20 server, and you can host a lot of projects on a $20 server, turns out. So yeah, I just want to show you a little project today. We're going to deploy a small Flask app. So Flask is a very minimal and kind of Python backend framework. So it just lets you write simple web apps. It can be pretty complex, but we'll be writing a really simple one today. All right, so let's get started. So yeah, the website is letsdisco.dev. That's our snazzy homepage. And I mean, you can read it, but I think what's interesting is when you click get started, you get into the docs where kind of all the cool kids go, I think. So in the docs, it's going to go over a few things, but really the core main things are you need a domain name because we'll be pointing a domain name to like the project we're going to be deploying. You need a server. We'll be taking care of that in a second. And you also need the command line tool that we have. So we've made a command line tool, and if you go through the instructions here, it will tell you how to install it. There's tarballs for Linux, Mac, and Windows. I already have it installed, so if I run Disco in my terminal, there you go. There it is. If I run it without any arguments, you can kind of see, some of the commands. There's more commands, but we're going to use just a few of them today. So great. So I have the command line tool installed, so that's one of the things we needed. We also need a server, right? So actually let's set up a server. And for that, I'm going to use Hetzner. So Hetzner, it's like DigitalOcean, maybe if you've heard of those. Both of those companies, platforms, they offer hosting. So they're kind of like virtual private servers, VPSs. There's a bunch of names for these, but they're really kind of like small servers that are somewhere in the cloud, and you can rent them. Pretty sure it's like by the minute. I don't think it's by the second, but it's pretty much you can open one, close one. It's very flexible. It's really easy to get a server. So let's get a server, okay? I'm obviously I've already signed up, but that shouldn't be too hard. I'll let you do that. I'm gonna click add server, and there's not that many questions that you have to answer. The main one is like where it is and where you want your server to be. So I'll just say US East because that's closer to me. We'll leave Ubuntu. Here is kind of the biggest question. It's what's the size of the machine you want to use. I'll just use whatever kind of like the default is. It's €7, so I think about $7. And it's good enough. It's like small, but not too small. It's not a big machine, of course, for $7 or €7. And I'll scroll down. So here, like the SSH keys, they've already been set up. If you know how SSH works, and there's tutorials, but you have kind of keys on your computer, and those keys will let you SSH into the servers you're going to set up. It's the same on DigitalOcean. You just kind of set this up once, and then it's like good forever. If you've also set up SSH keys with GitHub, it's all really the same. So yeah, I got a bunch of keys. It's all good. I don't need to do anything else. I really just kind of scroll down. I don't even know why. Oh, I guess because my camera's right. It was in the way of the big button, which is created by now. So I'm going to click the button, and then it's really quick. Same as on kind of DigitalOcean, it really takes not even a minute. It's actually kind of impressive, scary maybe even, how quickly that happens. So it's like it's done. So we have a server on the internet, and here's the IP address, and we will need that. And actually now we'll need that IP address because we're going to set up a domain name to point to this project. So now I'm going to move over to my registrar. So I use EasyDNS. This is the same as like Namecheap. There's so many, I forget. Pork Bun, I think there's one. There's a bunch of them. Obviously, AWS has one. I have a ton of domain names, but we'll just add a new one. You can visit those if you're curious. They're all just weird projects I make. So yeah, so let's set up our domain name. And this is the instructions, by the way. I'm going right now through the Flask tutorial. It's just because I know it by heart. I went a little fast, but it does say here you have to create a record. So we're gonna create a record now on our domain name, which is gonna point to the server that we just created a minute ago, which is crazy. So I'm gonna copy the IP address, and then I'm gonna call it. Let's just call it discosite.greg.technology. And so here's my IP, and I press save, and I'm done. So I have all the parts now, right? So I have a domain name, or subdomain, but kind of the same, right? So it's a domain name. It's pointing to my server. I have a server. We got that out of the way. I have the command line tool. We're ready. So we're ready to roll. We have all the prerequisites. And really quickly, if you look, we support like pretty much everything. We have examples for Go and Jekyll and Hugo and Django in Python, and we're gonna have Node and PHP, but they all really look the same. And the kind of first three steps again: domain, server, and the command line tool. Okay, so we got those. We're already kind of at this step, so we're gonna fork an example repo. So I'll just follow the link, and it kind of automatically makes you fork the repo. So let's just call it disco test, and then, it's April 18th. Well, that's not a really good name for a repo. Let's just call it like my small Flask site. Okay, that's a great name for a repo. So I'm gonna create that fork, and it will take a second. It used to like show a photocopier. Maybe that was before. Okay, great. So I have the repo, right? So it's just a sample repo that we created. There's a little bit of files here, very few. There's really like one file that's the actual kind of like web app. It's really short. There's a few other files. I'm not going to go into them in this video, but they're all pretty simple. Anyway, so I have a repo. I have a server. It runs. I'm not even going to kind of run it locally. Let's just deploy it. And let's just do that, right? So here's kind of the big moment, right? Oh, actually, I forgot. So we did get a server, right, at Hetzner, but we haven't initialized it yet with Disco. So to do that, and there is like all these steps are described here, I'm going to initialize the server. So to do that, I'd say disco init, and then I can connect to the server by root. That's just when Hetzner sets it up, your root. So I'll just say disco init root at the IP. So it's kind of as if you're connecting over SSH, which we will be actually. But you don't have to do anything here. You just get to do this with your hands and be like, this is all just auto magic. So yes, it's going to set up the server, install some things, make sure everything's kind of like ready, and prepare it so that you can deploy as many Disco projects to it as you want. Again, this setup kind of thing that you do, you only do it once per server. So, I mean, it's very early for us. We just launched this Disco thing, but we imagine you're not going to be like booting up new machines every day. So even though it's taking a tiny bit of time here, you only do it once per server. But you can easily get a new server. You can move projects around. There's also a lot of cool things that we let you do. But okay, I know that progress bar is kind of cool because at the end it's kind of like getting to 60 and you're like, oh no, and then hopefully it'll do that, because otherwise I just jinxed it. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to the tutorial, I think, and I'll just be ready for the next step, which is pretty much almost the last step, which is how you add a project. So yeah, you saw that. It was 60 and then 100. All right, so now our server is set up. Okay, so now it's really exciting because now we can add a project. And I'm really just, as you see, I'm just going to copy stuff over from that command. So yeah, I'm adding a project. It's giving it a name on the Disco server, so it's easy to see which is which. I'll just use the default name. Well, not like the sample name. This is the part where you say which repo the code will be coming from. So I've forked it as this. And yeah, it's a .git, so it's like the real kind of like git pointer, git address to the repo. And then the last thing is the domain. So you say, okay, well, what's my domain? So my domain was discosite.greg.technology. All right, let's see if that works. So yes, it's really fast. Now there's two steps that you have to do. We're working on this and it'll be even simpler soon, but I'll just go through the steps right now because you have to, and they're not that bad. So the first thing you have to do is you have to, if you just follow the instructions, you have to go to this URL, which is, it kind of brings you back to GitHub, right, where like your repo is, and you need to create a deploy key. Now, you just, copy this, you just call it disco, you copy the key, and this is kind of explained here. You press add key, and I believe, yeah, it's gonna ask me to do my little 2FA dance, so I'm gonna click this, and then it will be this, and then I approve, and then it goes away. There we go. Okay, so I've added my deploy key, and then you have to do a second thing, which is you have to go to this URL, you have to paste it, and then you add a webhook. And so this is what it's gonna let your server know that you're pushing new code to GitHub. So every time you push code to GitHub, your server is going to get notified of that through this webhook that you set up here. And then once you do that, and that's it, we're done. Okay, so I went by a little fast, but if you remember, we got a server, we already had the command line, we set up a domain name, we initialized the server, right? That was the disco init. Then in a tutorial, I did the disco project add. It made me do a few steps on GitHub. I got that out of the way. And we're actually done. So it's kind of crazy. So this like project it's not complicated at all, but it has a little small mini micro database, a SQLite database. So I'm just gonna run this command now per the tutorial, which is telling me that I need to run like an initialization. Oh yeah, so I haven't deployed my project first, so I guess we'll have to update the tutorial for this. Let me actually clone this repo. So I'm just gonna clone this repo right now, and I'm gonna go to my Flask site, and then I'll make an empty commit, and then I'm gonna push this. That's it. So I just kind of pushed a new commit to my repo. But by doing so, I also deploy the project. So we're working on improving this. You won't have to do empty commits in the future, but right now it's just kind of the trick. Okay, so I am pretty sure now that my project has deployed. There are ways of figuring it out, but I'm just kind of gonna trust it. And I'm gonna go back to the command that I was about to run, which is to initialize the database. So let me run that now. Hopefully that will work. That's it. Okay. There should have been a message, but now my database has been initialized. Okay, so this means, well, obviously drum roll and demo gods, and we hope it works. But if we go to disco site.technology, all right, drum roll, there we go. So this is the site that I just deployed. Okay, this is really cool. I'm just reloading, by the way, and every time I reload, there's a little counter. Okay, yes, so cool. So that's really cool. But I want to show you something else that I think is really, really, really cool. And then I will stop the video. So remember, like, obviously it's a GitHub repo, right? So if I go into it and I use Sublime, whatever, this is like the web project, right? It just says, if you read actually like on the page, it says, hello again from Disco, total hit. So it's just right here, hello again from Disco. So I just want to show you how quickly you can deploy new code, right? So we had to do a couple of things for sure. We had to do the disco init. You only do it once per server. You had to add the project. You obviously only do it once per project. But those things are the kinds of things that you kind of do once and then you kind of get them out of the way. So, this video might seem like a little long, but really I just did things that are all kind of like the boilerplate of the setup. But once they're done, they're done. You don't ever have to do that again. So let me actually show you what's the point of doing this is that it's really fun and easy to deploy new code. So let me show you that. So it says hello again from Disco. I think I added the again at some point. I don't know why. Let me remove that. So I'm going to just remove the again. Hello from Disco. I think that's cleaner. I'm going to save. And then I'm going to go to my terminal. And I'm going to, I'm using all my shortcuts. I have G as a git, obviously. So yeah, I'll just say git add. And then what do I like to do? I don't even know. Git status. I mean, I obviously just have that file, right? So I don't even know why I'm hesitating. Okay, I'm just going to add everything. I know it's not super clean. And then I'm going to make a message, which is like, update. So I just updated my site. Now here is that moment, okay? So I'm gonna git push, okay? Okay, so now it's git pushed. Now there is a command that lets you see your site being deployed, and you can like see all the logs. And it's just the time for me to like copy paste and write it, it will take longer than actually show you that the site has already been updated, hopefully. Yeah. Okay. Did you see that? So that was it. The new site got deployed in like, so I've seen sites been deployed in, this was probably close to 10 seconds. I've seen sites been deployed, was it less? It's like 7 seconds. It's like crazy, crazy, crazy fast. And it is all happening through git push, right? So you have the repository on your computer. That's normal. You work on it. You do git add, git commit, git push. That's all normal. But the second you do git push, a lot of magic happens, right? So your git push is pushing your code to GitHub, as you should. That's great. GitHub should have all your code. Well, not all, but you get the point. It's a good place to have your code. And then GitHub will send that webhook to your server that's been set up with Disco. And then Disco does all this magic, right? Which is to figure out, hey, you just deployed new code. So it kills your old version, boots up the new version, does whatever it needs. It's different for Python or Rails or whatever. But just makes it live and it just works. And obviously this is like all HTTPS, and so it's kind of magic and it's kind of cool. And it's called Disco and it's out. And we really like if you tried it and obviously left comments, and we have a Discord and we're all around. And yeah, that's it. Goodbye. Have a good one. Have a nice day.